Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash, Barakatah. Double honors to the elders and apostles and the righteous men of great millstone who teach us this truth in righteousness and sincerity and in brotherly love. And salutations to the hopeful elect, the 144,000 men of Yasharallah, and the 1/3 men, women, and children of Yasharallah. Shalom. This is your brother Shamya coming back at you one more time from the Great Millstone Helena, Montana camp. And we just going to jump right into this lesson, okay? And we always want to make a disclaimer. We are not a hate group, and we are not an extremist group. We are a truth group, and we only bring out the truth according to the Bible, according to the word of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, the God of Israel, the power of Yasharallah. Okay? So we're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to do this lesson, and this lesson that I'm going to do this evening, it was a damn fool on a comment board talking shit. You know, one of those clowns, one of those boneheads, a bozo. You know, he's a bozo. Just like how that guy said on the Back to the Future Part 2. He's like, "Hey McFly, you bozo! Those parts don't work on water." You know, so a bozo. You know, that's what he was. That's what a bozo on a comment board. You know, but let me just jump right into this lesson. It's like, it was this guy. No videos, no nothing. He had one video, and it kind of, I didn't even understand what he was talking about. He was trying to bring out scriptures. He was just talking shit, and it's like, man, it was just madness. But anyway, he commented on one of these on this video that I did, and this is what this guy said. He says this. He gets the precept to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48 to 49. And this is what this guy says. He says, Exodus chapter 12, verse 48 to 49 makes you as a natural born Israelite. This is what this guy said on the comment board. He says Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48 to 49 makes you as a natural born Israelite. So, you know, he's one of those wacky tacky Christians that really believes that if you believe in Jesus Christ, that's what they ignorantly call Yahweh Shai, because the Lord's name is Yahweh Shai, not Jesus Christ. But he believes that when you call on Jesus Christ, you're saved, and you're saved automatically, and you're a spiritual Israelite now. But nowhere in the scriptures it doesn't say that. It doesn't say no. It doesn't say spiritual Israelites. You're either a natural born Israelite or you're a natural born heathen. Okay, you can't be a Israelite. That you can't be. You just it don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? But these wacky tacky Christians try to make it seem like it can work like that. It doesn't work like that. And Yahweh Shem Shai don't work like that. You know, he has his people. If you're a natural born Israelite, you're a natural born Israelite, and no other nations can get up into this covenant, this contract, this formal binding agreement that the Lord made between his people, the physical Israelites. Okay, nobody else ain't getting up in that. The Lord made a covenant, a contract with his people, his physical people, the 12 tribes of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, if your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're an Israelite. You can't get up in there if you're a fucking heathen. Okay, this don't have nothing to do with the fucking heathens. But let's just do this lesson for the edification of the righteous Akim and Athquath of Yasharallah. So let's go to first. Let's read because this guy went to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48 and 49, and he just said, man, fuck all the other verses. Just stick to these. No, we're gonna go and read this in its entirety. So we're gonna start at verse in the book of Exodus chapter 12, and we're gonna start at verse 43, just to get the edification, okay? Because it's all about the edification for our people, okay? Yasharallah. So let's read this real quick. This is Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43. And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai said unto Moses, so the Lord is speaking to his people, not only his people, he's speaking to Moses and Aaron, who are Israelites from the tribe of Levi, okay? And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance, okay? And the ordinance is the law, so the Lord is telling Moses and Aaron about the law, you know, in the law. The ordinance of the Passover, okay? There shall no stranger eat thereof. Now now this clown, this bozo, he didn't read this verse. He didn't read this verse. Because if you read verse 43, which is what we just read, and then you jump down to verse 48, wait a second. The Lord ain't contradicting itself. Because verse 43, it says it. I'm going to read it again. And the Lord Yahweh Shai said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Okay? Now, real quick in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43, and the Bible in basic English, okay? Because the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, they taught us how to go into these other translations, go into the words, study the etymology of the words through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. So this is Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43 in the Bible in basic English. And it reads, and the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai, said to Moses and Aaron, this is the law, just like what we read in King James Version, the ordinance, the law of the Passover. No man who is not an Israelite is to take of it. So if you're not an Israelite, you can't take over the Passover. We just read it. Exodus chapter 12 verse 43 in the Bible in basic English. I'm going to read it again. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the law of the Passover. No man who is not an Israelite is to take of it. That's plain. Now, Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43, I looked up the word stranger, okay? Stranger in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43, stranger. This is Strong's Concordance H5236, okay? H5236. Now, let's remember that concordance, because this is the concordance for Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43, stranger. H5236. Now, when we jump down to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48, the concordance for stranger in verse 48 is H1616. Now, wait a second. There are two different concordances. Exodus chapter 12 verse 43, the stranger is H5236. But then the concordance in Exodus chapter 12 verse 48 for stranger is H1616. So wait a second. Now we got to dig deeper into this, because the Lord said in verse 43, there should no stranger, a person that's not an Israelite, should take over to eat Salakia. No stranger, which the stranger is a non-Israelite, should not eat of the Passover. This is what the Lord said in verse 43. But then in verse 48, Yahweh Shem Shai says this, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. And then verse 49 it says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Now we have a problem, and this is why this bonehead, this bozo, brought up verse 48 and verse 49 with no understanding. Because again, when we jump to verse 43, the Lord said, a stranger, a non-Israelite, a heathen of another nation is not to eat the Passover. But then the Lord says in verse 48, they can finally eat of the Passover. He said, the Lord said in verse 43, they can't eat the Passover. But now in verse 48, the Lord changed his mind and said that now they can eat of the Passover. It doesn't make any sense, because that's what we just proved. That's why, again, in verse 43, the stranger, the concordance is H5236. The concordance in verse 48 for stranger is H1616. Now we have to break this down to see what this is talking about. Okay? So now real quick, because we can clearly see that this stranger that is talking about in verse 40 and verse 49, that is an Israelite foreigner. And we're going to prove it. So now let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 26. And I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Shai for letting me do this lesson, because the Lord wanted me to do this lesson, okay? For the edification of the Akim, the Athquat of Yasharallah, the children of Israel. Now this is Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3. Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3. Genesis 26 and verse 3, and it reads, verse 3. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 2, and it reads, and the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Matter of fact, I'm going to read verse 1 too. It says, and there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. Verse 2, and the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Verse 3, sojourn in the land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. Okay? So the Lord is speaking right here, okay? The Lord is speaking, okay, to his servant. Okay? Now, real quick, verse 3 and Genesis chapter 26, verse 2 to 3. Real quick, and I'm going to read that in the New Living Translation. Genesis chapter 26. Genesis chapter 26. And Genesis chapter 26, verse 2 to 3 in the New Living Translation. And the title reads, Isaac deceives Abimelech. Okay? So it says right here, a severe famine now struck the land, as had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, which Abimelech, king of the Philistines, lived. Verse 2, the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai appeared to Isaac and said, do not go to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live as a foreigner. Just like what we read in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48, that stranger, which is H1616, that's an Israelite foreigner. So Isaac was dwelling in a land where he was a foreigner, a stranger. Okay? Let's read it again. Verse 2. The Lord Yahweh Shem Shai appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Verse 3, live as a foreigner in the land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham your father. So in the New Living Translation, it says foreigner. So what I did was, in verse 3, in the King James Version, it says sojourn. Okay? That word sojourn in Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3, in the King James Version, the concordance is H1481. Stranger. Okay? Just like what we go back to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48. That word stranger, the concordance is H1616. Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3 in the King James Version, when it says sojourn, the concordance is H1481, stranger. Okay? Stranger. H1481. Stranger. Okay? Now we go to Exodus chapter 16. We go to Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4. Exodus chapter 6. Okay? Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4. Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4. Okay? And it reads, matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 3. Exodus 6 and 3. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob. This is Yahweh Shem Shai, the God of Israel, speaking to his people, his servants. And I appeared unto Abraham, and unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, by the name of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, Almighty. Okay? It says, read it one more time. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of Yahweh Shem Shai Almighty, but by my name Yahweh was I not known to them. Okay? And we're just getting the edification. But in verse 4 it says this, and I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. Where they were strangers. The concordance in Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4 for that word strangers is Strong's Concordance H1481. Just like how we read in Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3 for sojourn, H1481, stranger. So Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4, in Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4, where it says strangers, the concordance is H1481. See, in Exodus chapter 26 and verse 3, it says sojourn, which is concordance H1481, but in Exodus 6 and 4, it says strangers, which is H1481. It has the same concordance. It just says sojourn in verse 3 in Genesis 26, and in Exodus 6 and 4, it says strangers, but it has the same concordance. Now, real quick, in Exodus 6 and 4, in the New Living Translation, Exodus 6 and 4 in the New Living Translation, it reads, it says, and I reaffirmed my covenant with them under its terms. I promised to give them the land of Canaan where they were living as foreigners. King James Version says strangers. New Living Translation says foreigners. Okay? But we just going to keep moving and grooving and through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. Now let's read Genesis chapter 17. Genesis chapter 17 and verse 8. Genesis 17, verse 8 through 9. And it reads, and this is Yahweh Shem Shai speaking, and I will give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee, the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. And I will be their God. I will be their power. Verse 9. And Yahweh Shem Shai said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. Okay? But like I said, but we jump back to verse 8 when the Lord said, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger. This is Genesis chapter 17 and verse 8. Now verse 8 for stranger is Strong's Concordance H4033 from H1481. The same as is in Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3 when it says sojourn, Concordance H1481. The same as it says in Exodus chapter 6 and verse 4, strangers, H1481. Just like how we're reading right now in Genesis chapter 17 and verse 8, for stranger, H4033 from H1481. The Strong's Info says this, in the sense of lodging, a temporary abode, by extension, a permanent residence. Just like what we read again in Genesis chapter 17 and verse 8. This is what Yahweh Shem Shai said to Abraham. It says, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their power. And there you go. Okay? Genesis chapter 17, verse 8, again, stranger, H4033 from H1481. Strong's Info, in the sense of lodging, a temporary abode by extension, a permanent residence. Okay? And that's what Yahweh Shem Shai did for his servants, our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Gave them the land for an everlasting possession. Okay? The Lord don't change. And very soon the Lord's going to put us back in our rightful inheritance and our rightful possession that he has given and had promised through our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? Now, I want to go to Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 33 to 34. See, and this is continuous. Everything that we're reading is continuous. It doesn't stop. The narrative doesn't stop. It's continuous. Okay? Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 33, and it reads, and if a stranger, is that a word stranger again? If a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, ye shall not vex him. Okay? So we can clearly see that this is talking about an Israelite foreigner. Don't the Lord said, don't vex him, don't hate, just no, he's greet him because he's an Israelite too. He may be a foreigner, but he's still your people. Okay? It says verse 33, and if a stranger, an Israelite foreigner, we're gonna prove that. It says, sojourn with thee in your land, ye shall not vex him. Okay? Verse 34, but the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your power. Now the concordance for stranger in verse 33 and verse 34 is H1616. In verse 33 for stranger, and in verse 34 for stranger. The concordance is H1616, the exact same concordance that it has in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48, H1616. Okay? H1616. Now, real quick, I want to read in Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 33 and verse 34, just to get more edification, the concordance for stranger, H1616 from H1481. There's that concordance again. Okay? H1481. Okay? Let me read it one more time. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33 to verse 34. For stranger, H1616 from H1481. It's the same. So then when we go back to Exodus chapter, real quick, Exodus, and we're going to wrap it up. So when we go back to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 48 to 49, it says again, verse 43, Bible in basic English, it says, no man who is not an Israelite is to take of it, the Passover. So in verse 43, that's talking about H5236, the natural heathen. Then when we jump down to verse 48 to 49, when it reads, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Verse 49, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Now it makes more sense now, because in verse 48 and verse 49, the concordance is H1616. We can clearly see verse 43, that stranger is H5236. Verse 48 to 49, that stranger is H1616. There are two different strangers. It says stranger, but if you don't look into the words and go into the concordance and understand, those are two different strangers. Two different concordance is talking about two different strangers. Verse 43 is talking about the natural heathen. Verse 48 to 49 is talking about an Israelite foreigner. And we proved it and we broke it down through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shemel Shai, and the elders, apostles, great millstone the Lord has set up. Okay? Now, let's top it off. Go to Hebrews chapter 11. Let's put the cherry right on top. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 9. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 9. And this is in the New Testament. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 9. And it reads, and this shows you too that the whole book of Hebrews is only talking about the children of Israel. The narrative does not change. Verse Hebrews 11 and verse 9, it reads, by faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. Okay? This is talking about Abraham. Okay? Read it one more time. Verse 9. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac, and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. We look up that word for sojourn real quick. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 9, we look up the word sojourned, is Strong's Concordance G3939. Now, in the lexicon, this is what it reads. In the scriptures, to be or dwell in a place as a stranger, to sojourn, and then it gives you the precept, Genesis chapter 26 and verse 3. The same precept we read in the beginning of this lesson. That's beautiful, man. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Shai. I'm going to read that again. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 9 for the concordance for sojourned. Strong's Concordance G3939. In the lexicon, it says, in the scriptures, to be or dwell in a place as a stranger, to sojourn. Then it gives you the precept, Genesis 26 and verse 3. Genesis 26 and verse 3. We go back to it real quick. Genesis 26 and verse 3. It says, Genesis 26 and verse 3. It says, Genesis 26 and verse 3. It says, sojourn. Okay, sojourn, H1481, stranger, right? And there you go. We proved it. That's actually the precept right there. Well, you just proved it because even the lexicon said, go to the precept, Genesis 26 and verse 3. I'm going to wrap it up, Akim. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash, Barakatah. Double honors to the elders and apostles and the righteous men of great millstone who teach us this truth in righteousness, in sincerity, and in brotherly love. Until the next lesson, let's keep preaching and teaching this word, Akim, and let's stay on point and continue to exalt and praise and glorify our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Kwam Yasharala, and Abad Babal. Shalom.